Hi everyone, I'm Ali Greymond. For the last over a decade now, I've been helping people recover from OCD. I think I was one of the first YouTubers who ever talked about OCD, which is actually the reason why I talked about OCD is because nobody else was talking about it, and I thought that if I have it and I can recover, then maybe I can help somebody else, and it grew into all this. So today I'm answering questions about OCD time tracking. First question is, how do I track rumination about trans OCD, POCD, and nature OCD when my mind is always forcing me to think about it, even when I try to disregard? I feel like it's lingering in the background, if that makes sense. What counts as ruminating? Great question. So, when you are trying not to ruminate, what does that look like? It looks like you are trying to go about your business, you're doing your life, and in the middle of the room, as you are doing your life, there's somebody standing and screaming at you OCD stuff, right? This is how it metaphorically looks like, that you're trying to go about your business, you're trying to live life, and there's something screaming at you all day long as you are trying to disregard, but you are not supposed to be engaging with it. So you're not responding, you're not trying to prove a point, you're simply continuing your life. But of course, you're going to be uncomfortable because you're having this scream at you all day long. So as long as you're not engaging, what active engaging is, right? So responding, Googling, asking, checking, ruminating, trying to figure out actively, then you don't count it as time. And you just have to make a judgment call of what you count active and what you count passive. What I see with clients is at first we kind of try to do things that are obviously active rumination. So when the person again is checking, Googling, whatever, right? And then we start to go more fine tuning where I think this thing is rumination. And actually, Ali, I think this is rumination too. This is pretty much how all my process of doing recovery work with clients goes, that the further we go into recovery, the more we start to see and find rumination in smaller things as well, once we get rid of the larger, more obvious things. So at first, try to get the main things. Don't get caught up in, but what if I'm missing something? And what if I'm missing something? That means I won't recover. Because that would also be counted as rumination, because now you're ruminating about what if I don't recover. So track it willy nilly, the best you can in the given time, the best you can, the stuff that you catch, track and reduce. And when you're going through the day, it's important to have a goal. So we're not just tracking like, ate a bag of cookies today. Could you have saved one? Could you have reduced it by one? I believe you could. And that's what we're trying to do. So we're trying just to make a step back and not ruminate the entire time, but maybe 5 minutes less. And that 5 minutes becomes 10 minutes and so on and so forth. So little by little, scaling it back. Next question. I'm tracking, but I still feel horrible and have the same amount of anxiety as before, even though my rumination time is a lot less than before. I've seen some others with similar questions, but I want to make sure it's all good without seeking reassurance. Haha, thanks from London. Okay, so usually when this happens, so you're tracking, your rumination time is reducing, but you're not feeling better, it means that you are missing rumination. And 90% of the time, it's exactly what I was just talking about, is rumination about rumination, that the person starts to get really worried about not tracking correctly. They try to count uh, each and every minute, and that becomes their new OCD. So this kind of feeds into OCD about OCD, the theme. So I would check there. Also, if you're watching OCD videos, right? What is the reason why you are, or following OCD accounts? What is the reason you're following them? If it's because you want to get better, like truly, if that's because of it, that's fine. But if it's because you're kind of trying to figure out if your thought is OCD or not, or you're maybe if it's OCD about OCD theme, right? You're trying to make sure that you can recover and you're trying to find more and more information to figure that out, that would count as rumination time. Also, sometimes the person will not ruminate a lot, but they will go right to avoidance. So technically, there's zero rumination, but their world is very small, and they're constantly worrying about, okay, I can't do that because that's scary. I can't do this because this is scary. So technically, that would also count as part of the tracking. So technically, it's not rumination, but it would count as part of the tracking minutes. Um, but 100% that if your anxiety is still high and your rumination numbers are low, 100% you're missing rumination somewhere. So we have to, so this is usually with clients when we look at the situation and examine it deeply to see where the leak is happening. And like I said, mostly it's OCD about OCD. So when you're tracking, you want to track loosely. So not like you're obsessing about it and you want everything to be perfect, and the perfectionism comes out, right? But more like, okay, yeah, I'm doing my best. I just gotta reduce by 10 minutes today for each time period. All right, so I'm gonna go do that. So willy nilly, not putting so much energy into it where it becomes an obsession in itself. Next question. This is not really related, but it's an interesting question. Why do I see the thoughts I have everywhere on social media? Because your thoughts are not unique. That's why. Because OCD, I mean, I talk to people all day. I don't really take weekends every day for the last, like I said, over 10 years, well, actually over like 13 years now. So, and it's, I can't even tell you one time where I was surprised with something I've never heard before. It's all very similar thoughts, but people think that they are unique and that they're the only one experiencing them. Next question. Sorry, I'm just reading this as I'm recording, so a little bit slow here. Um, Oh, okay. Well, this is something I've kind of picked up before, but I'll answer it here as well. You often say that 90% of your clients do fully recover. But why do we never read this in comments or in general on the internet? So you have to understand, regular way of handling OCD is doing controlled exercises, so controlled exposure exercises. Almost no energy is devoted to reducing rumination. It's mostly reducing compulsions. And when it comes to reducing rumination, most therapists don't know where to go from there. So, because if let's say a person is trying to do some sort of exposure work once a day for an hour, but yet they are ruminating 90% of the day, they're never going to recover that way because they're doing more damage than good. So they're doing some good, right? They're disregarding, they're doing exposure for a little bit of the time, but it's not anywhere near enough. So, and this is the situation. This kind of recovery work is what would keep your OCD chronic, where you've got your head above water a little bit because you are doing some exposure work, but it's not nearly enough because you're ruminating, you're bringing your adrenaline up, you're bringing your cortisol up, you're taking it seriously, which means you're training your brain that this is important 90% of the day. But yes, you're doing your 1 hour exercise, sure. So that's why the problem with it's the methods. It really is. Um, After how many intervals we need to track? So in terms of the intervals, I would say we do it in 3 hour increments. With clients, though, sometimes if a client is having a difficult day, it might be worthwhile to go to 1 hour. So you track every hour. And again, you need to have a goal. So you can't just be tracking how much you ruminated post fact. You have to be going through the time period in your mind, having an idea where I'm having my max number is this. For example, my max number for rumination for the next 3 hours is 10 minutes max. And this is your budget. You can't go beyond that budget, but it's up to you what you want to spend it on, right? And 10 minutes is kind of maybe a little bit too intense for most people, especially starting out. with a lot of clients, we start out, if they're at 180 out of 180, we start out at 170, right? So little by little, gradual reduction, that's what you need, and you can see that if you just reduce by 10 minutes every 3 hours, what does that look like? Okay, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to go call somebody, I'm going to go do this and that. I'm not going to ruminate. So almost like you're just pushing it off. You're saying, I will ruminate, but not right now. So you're kind of little by little gaining control. And then the next day, 20 minutes. So for 20 minutes, you're saying, no, sorry, not going to ruminate for 20 minutes, but I can pick it up later. Because that idea that you will pick it up later allows you to have a little more freedom, allows you to have a little more control that you didn't have before, right? Because it's kind of like you're not saying, I'm never going to ruminate, because that seems impossible, but you're saying, I'm just going to ruminate a little bit less. And that is very helpful. But if you're having a hard time, just do every hour for when you're having a bad day. But when you're having a good day, you can go to 3 hours. Okay, so this is a little bit different, but also a good question. Please tell me what to do in the morning. Mornings are the worst for, I would say, 70% of clients I've seen with those. Even I would say 80%. Most people feel worse in the mornings. And there's reasons for that, because the body's natural rhythms is that the cortisol is highest in the morning and serotonin is the lowest in the morning. Your hormones don't stay the same, if you don't know, throughout the day, right? So they fluctuate. So in the morning, you have a situation where your cortisol and adrenaline are high, serotonin is very low, and it's a perfect mixture for an OCD push. Plus, when you first wake up, you're not really occupied yet, like you don't have other things going on. So it's OCD comes in, and the person is almost unable to, not almost, frequently the case that they're unable to even get up and start the day because the thoughts attack. They started to get into rumination. Now they're laying and ruminating, and now you're setting yourself up for the day from that state, from the state of rumination and falling apart. And how are you going to be the rest of the day, right? If that's how you set yourself up. So in the morning, no matter how you feel, it's very important to start the day, to get up. Don't lay in bed and ruminate. It will all feel very real. You just gotta continue with the morning, with the day. So you get a thought, doesn't matter, I'm getting up, I gotta do this, this, and this. If you feel like you need to have a list of things that you're doing in the morning just to keep yourself going, do the list. But you gotta keep yourself moving in the morning. It will get easier after that. Another question. Do I track the duration of the thought or just the time when the thought emerged? Neither. You track when you engage, the amount of time that you engaged with the thought. So the thought came in, for example, I feel the urge to do something bad. What if I do something bad, right? That original thought is automatic. That's not coming from you. That's just OCD. So we don't track that as rumination time. But what happens after that? After that, you start, oh yeah, I feel like I am. What if I actually do it? Let me think, blah, blah, blah. Now you got into it. This is actively trying to figure it out. Let me watch online some OCD videos, see if it's true, right? Again, you're trying to actively figure it out. So that would count as rumination time. Or let me go ask somebody, also would count as rumination time. But if you're like, don't care, same as always, disregarding, and the thought comes back again and again and again, but you're not engaging it, you just hear it in the background, but you're continuing to go about your day, then that would not count as rumination. Even if you hear the thought all day, you're not engaging with it. I find myself obsessing over counting, timing, tracking in 3 hour blocks. Exactly. So obsessing should not be happening. It shouldn't be exact. You shouldn't be counting every minute. It shouldn't be that obsessive. And the goal is to reduce rumination time. Obsessing about tracking would count as rumination time. So you want to be kind of, looser about it, not as intense. We're just trying to bring, and like again, it's not all or nothing. We're just trying to bring it down a little bit each day. So it's the person saying, I find myself trying to count or making a very rough estimate the other way. So try to go about it this way, that you have your rumination time, right? You have your total rumination time. So for example, your max goal for each time period, right? That you won't go beyond this goal is 30 minutes. You start your time period and you're like, damn it, already wasted 10 minutes out of the 30. So you're doing constant subtraction where you start out with your goal and little by little you're bringing that down. You know, you have to be going about it this way. So little by little reducing. Um, I'm tracking my time ruminating, but it's only 10 minutes a day. But I still get the urge to panic about the what if thoughts. Is this rumination that I'm doing, even if I'm not paying attention to the thought and leaving it be, but I still physically scared or jittery? Um, it sounds like you. So sometimes people are afraid of the content of the thought, right? So say for example, I'm worried. What if I kill somebody, right? They're afraid of the content. After a while, they kind of get wise to OCD's ways, and they're no longer afraid of the content of the thought, but rather they're afraid of having the thought. Okay, maybe I won't kill anybody, but I'm still super anxious, and I don't want to be super anxious, right? And that can become an obsession as well. So if you find that that's your situation, then anytime you're ruminating about being anxious in the future or worrying about OCD coming back or anything like that would count as OCD, and it's also very common. Um, okay, so this is a good question. Usually, rumination takes hours for me. Do I put a timer when I feel it starts happening? No, you don't. You don't put, just like you wouldn't put a counter next to a bag of cookies while you're eating those cookies. Your goal is to reduce. So the rumination is, it's not happening to you. You are an active participant in the rumination. The thought came in, but now what do you do? Do you react or do you not react? If you react, you're making OCD worse. If you don't react, you're making OCD better. And if you just don't react, 10 minutes more each time period each day, then in from, let's say if we track in 180 minutes, right? Little by little, 18 days you will go to zero if you just reduce by 10 minutes. And like I always say, plus fails, plus stagnation, okay, 25 days, 30 days. But you can really bring this down in a month. It's not going to take that much, but the accountability and the commitment needs to be there. This is what we kind of really get into with clients, because it's, when I work with clients, they're sending me tracking. We're focused on reducing every single day. And that's why we get results, because there is not really a lot of wiggle room there, that you are accountable for every moment of the day where your mind is at. Are you ruminating? Are you making it worse or not? It's really, really important for you to reduce the rumination time. That's the key to, not in every type of OCD, right? So just as a side note, and it really shouldn't be a side note, but for right now it is, I probably should do a separate video on it. But in the situation where you don't really have a lot of rumination, right? It's mostly compulsions, because sometimes OCD comes in a form where a person will just do the compulsion almost without questioning OCD. So OCD says jump and you immediately jump. And then you feel relief, and then OCD says jump again, and you jump again. There is no time between where OCD said to jump and the person jumps. There's no rumination time in between. So in that case, their rumination would be zero, but they're doing a ton of compulsions. So just like we're reducing rumination, same way you will reduce compulsions. And another important thing that I wanted to add to this as well is that when you are dealing with OCD, you have to understand that OCD often, I would say for 90% of people, depending on how long they've had it, will shift from topic to topic. So today it's this, tomorrow it's that. And this is another reason why people have chronic OCD that they can't recover from, is because their doctor or them themselves are focused on treating a specific type of OCD. Like we're working on HOCD or we're working on ROCD. But you spend a year working on ROCD, writing scripts for ROCD, right? Like the scripting technique or whatever, doing exposures for our ROCD, and one day your mind said, "All right, we'll switch to HOCD. It's not even a problem." And now what? You're gonna start all over again? This is why these methods are ineffective, because for OCD to switch from one topic to another takes seconds. Just something you overheard, something you saw, something, it can be something that's in the moment just switched your mind to, oh my God, but this is scarier. And now you're on a whole new trajectory that what you're going to do another hierarchy for, another round of scripting and on purpose exposures. Why don't we rather say it's all rumination? We're reducing rumination. We're reducing compulsions. What type of rumination? What type of compulsions? Any type. Because you don't need any of it. You don't need to carry those rocks, right? And that will prevent you from getting OCD ever again, because no matter under what disguise it comes up next, you will be like, nope, I am disregarding. And then, like I say, always carrying it into real life as well is really important, because if you start to overreact in real life, right, with real things, but you take it too far, the next stop on that train is OCD. So you got to make sure that you don't take it too far in real life as well. And it so helps you live easier post recovery that you don't get caught up on things. It will become one day, this will become your benefit, but it just will take work to get there. um, how do I track my rumination or mental compulsions? They're very quick, less than 5 minutes, like flash thoughts. Thank you for everything. So if your rumination is less, like very, very quick, less than 5 minutes, then just try to track overall. But if it's mental compulsions, for example, I need to count to 10 before I move on, right? Like those kinds of things, right? Like if it's not a thought, you're not trying to figure something out, it's more of a very precise compulsion that you're trying to do. In that case, even though it's happening in your mind, I do suggest to clients to treat it as a compulsion rather than as rumination, if it's a precise thing that you're doing in your mind. And we're trying to reduce the number of those things that you're doing, right? So we're counting it as I did the compulsion one time, two times, three times in the 3 hour time period, rather than tracking the length of time. Because the length of time might seem small, maybe altogether was 20 minutes, but in that 20 minutes, you did a compulsion 200 times, right? So in that case, we need to track it as number of compulsions. I hope this clears it up for you. I'm going to do more of these Q&As. I find it very helpful because there's a learning curve to this, right? So, but once you get this, I'm telling you, I see this across all of my clients. The ones that are tracking are doing good. They're depending on when they started, are in the process of recovery or have already recovered. People who are not tracking are having a harder time. And it doesn't mean that you won't recover, but it's just going to take so much longer. So the tracking is really, really important. I'm going to leave the links for the app below for Android and for iOS. Please use them. If you would like to do a recovery program with me, all the information is on youhaveocd.com. We can get started right away. Let me know. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.